Alright. 8:19, we'll call meeting to order. We'll start, we have any guests here, so we'll start with the minutes from the November board meeting, as we didn't have one in November. Everyone have a chance to review what Kaylee sent out last week. Any questions or comments? Motion to approve, like third, second, I'm sorry. Daggett, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries, thank you. Financials.
All right, we didn't have finance committee meetings either, and thank you for accepting the proposal to not have a December meeting. It's usually the only month that we might not be able to not have a meeting, so hopefully that was good on your side too. In terms of financials, you've got expenditures, and I'll run through October and November. Get them presented this way so we can consolidate. There are a few items on the November expenditures that are carryovers from need to be pushed to Naturally Lewis billing. So instead of handling those all individually, like our Zoom subscription and Facebook ads and stuff, instead of handling those individually, I was just going to get it here. Or end of the 3-month period, wrap all those up and build the different entities back as we get those all transferred to where they should be. The things that are coming in monthly are no-brainers, we just pay them with the entity that needs to pay them. With some of the subscriptions that were automatic hit old accounts. So we'll get all of those moved to where they need to be. It's not a lot of money at all, but just wanted to point that out. Any questions on expenditures before we move on? I'm still in here in November. Okay. On the balance sheet for October, I think that's next. Yeah. You do see some changes there on the checking and savings line. We had our Roaring Brook administrative fee. I think that's the final one for Roaring Brook come in, but our payment to Naturally Lewis for 2023 went out in October, so those offset for the most part. And then on the other current assets line, there are just a few items that contributed to that negative. But under current liabilities or accounts payable and current liabilities down below, you would see the offset for the Naturally Lewis expenditure. Also paying out our HRA and PTO reserves. One those over to Naturally Lewis so that they can take on those liabilities. Any questions on that report? We've got the profit and loss for October. Notables there are on the other income line and CDBG grant line. Those two lines the offset our large LC grants, both of those two lines. You also see on the revenues and fees line, Roaring Brook's fee coming in. And the only other notable I had there is just to keep pointing out that interest is amazing. But next week, having that as kind of a bonus coming in on all sides. Is that still with I've got some over in New York class. Is it comparable? I haven't had enough history. Yeah, there were.
But in October, that would.
Yeah, October that would have been. That would have been a bank in November. You start to see New York class. But it was probably to October, probably to November. Yeah, and I'm testing the waters right now because I do want to see how comparable they are. I've only got $1 million of brand, $1 million of brand in my class right now. Alright, how good up with probably have a separate motion for October.
Yeah, well, yeah, we can start with October's finances. Take a motion to approve. Bragan, second, Mackenzie, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries, thank you. Now November's.
Most notable on expenditures is you see 3 payrolls hitting in November. And also the barley appraisal group, invoice was for the first thing, appraisal that finally came through. Any questions on expenditures? Here's the balance sheet for November. And this is when you see naturally their IDA activities start to, at least financial activities start to go down a little bit. Not a lot of motion here. The one notable I have is on the current assets line, the tax shop paid off that bridge loan that we've given them to cover their Watch LC grant. So we saw a little bit of a reduction there. Questions on that? Profit loss? The only notable I have here, again, you can see there's not a ton of activity in November. That will become more the norm. We'll see big expenditures and big revenue streams, but the little stuff, you get the day-to-day, the overhead will start to go away. On the other income line, the one piece that is still pending and kind of dragging its feet is that 82,000. Let's see, on the June through November line. That's an outstanding invoice for one of the solar projects that we haven't closed on. And so they haven't paid their IDA fee, so that keeps lingering. It shows us way above budget there, but it is on an accrual basis, so that's just an invoice right now, it's not paid. So I touched base with the attorney again yesterday, seeing what they're gonna do. I think a lot of the solar projects we're kind of waiting on some how their assessment kind of shook out with the new tax laws before they move forward. That's all I've got.
All right, any questions for November? Motion to approve November's financials. Got it, second, third, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. All right, so a few months ago, we had some working sessions and worked through these key work items to try to better define the IDA's role in concert with what Natural Lewis will be doing now, and updating our mission statement to reflect that. So this is what we've come up with and what was shared a few times, then tweaked a few times, and so I think today we're ready to officially adopt it if we're if everyone's good with it. So take a motion to adopt the keyword in the mission statement. Darlene, second, third, any discussion? All in favor? Right. Motion carries, thank you. All right, something that we discussed back in November and then had some subsequent discussion on was the Backyardigans project with at the brewery and their timeline for getting up and running and the extension of the grace period. Is that okay? In terms of when they would start paying on their lease in the home. So we're proposing a March.
Yeah, and just for further update, I've been talking to Troy at least once a week, just kind of touching base on where everything is and making sure that he's on our radar, so, you know, that's where he kind of went off the radar. He is making good progress, he's got, it seems like every new brewer we get, thinks that the old brewers electrical is crap. So, he's had some electrical done, he has this electrical inspection, and everything's passing, and he's in good shape. So now just getting the final pieces in order and to move forward with the liquor license to get brewing, and it's a farm brewer's license. But the updates have been good, it's been consistent, and I said, would you like to come to the board meeting? We haven't met you yet. I said, actually, can you just come down after our February meeting? You should be far enough along that we should be able to get a tour. I mean, it's a little thing, but see what he's done, and he should be near ready to open at that point. So we'll see that on the bottom of the agenda. That scheduled for after our next meeting. But March 1st would be, we'd be very happy with that. He was asking for February 1st, but March 1st would be even better.
Question for clarification, is Second Place Beer Company and Backyardigans the same? Why is it between?
Backyardigans is like a holding company, and then Second Place is their brewery name.
Alright, so is this is one motion for to extend the current terms, right, because we're already,
Right, to,
how do we want to phrase that?
we phrased it last time. Let's dig in, find that. But in October is the topic. No, it's somewhere. Yes.
A little later into the fall. What are we looking for? Verbiage? The language we use. Less than the extension. Extend extension.
We said that extend the grace period for equipment and building those payments in Second Place Beer Co. to January 1st, 2024.
Those building agencies, or equipment and building place payments.
And grace period.
So the proposal was to extend it to March 1st. Make a motion for Goggin to extend both the building and equipment lease grace period to March 1st. Second by Darlene, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you.
I won't go into too much detail on the report I provided, we've got a chance to look at it a little bit. Had a fair share of stuff going on in the office. Plenty to keep track of, but on the IDA specific side, we continue to move forward with Get It Done. We're hoping to actually have that in front of you next month. That one's been slow in getting through the attorney process. to get back in front of you guys for approval, go ahead, if you're in on that one. I don't have a recent update from them yet where they are with, their DEC permitting.
I think they got through all of it, and there's a second round of questioning. So, but the engineers of that, they were pretty close.
Good, good, I know they were frustrated at that different times and told me that I saw the property listed, that's nice. A pretty typical small business, to say that. We're kind of in a waiting period right now on the General Martin apartments. Skipping around a little bit, the Glenfield School, that's what they're gonna call the apartments there. We're in a little bit of a waiting period, they call it their pencil zone period, we'll wait and see if they get their housing funding from New York State. So we should know that within a few weeks, and then if that's on and it's full steam ahead, it would be great. They do have the pilot application, incentive application in hand. I've asked them to provide a draft of that application to me in January, because it will be a deviation. We don't have anything in people's housing right now. And the ABO is really scrutinizing housing deals right now. So we want to get our UTEP with the adaptive reuse piece in place before we accept their application. So I want them to be working on their application and not be like starting that process with them, but I don't want to accept it until I UTEP with that language in place, especially because the ABO is really ready to look at us right now. Some more to come on that, we'll keep moving forward with them. In the meantime, we've got a few solar pilots that are kind of hanging out in the signing stage. I need to touch base before year end with our attorneys on Duke Energy and Thomas Solar. Just to find out what our obligation is and keeping those open. Duke Energy is what, 4 years old or something. And that was under old UTEP, it's like $3,500 per megawatt, I think ridiculously low. I don't get the sense that they are going to move forward, but I would like to be able to say that that's a definite no. And then we've got a couple projects coming off pilot in 2024 and a couple more that will be coming off in 2025, which is fun. Grand Slam Safety, or MDBD as their ownership structure was at inception. That one will be coming off in 2024, we'll be making their final payment this month. As well as Otis, which Otis will be a really good one for us to be bringing off pilot, because they haven't been meeting their employment targets for years, and each year we have to kind of justify that to the ABO as to why we're still letting them be on pilot. So we're happy with them. And we'll get to the ABO stuff. Report.
Can you refresh my memory? The River Wind is in what town?
It's, that's includes part of the deer farm, right? Is that the one that? I honestly can't remember that's literally,
I don't know.
I mean, you referenced 2018 as the last conversation, but it was, I think it goes back to like 2012, 2013.
Yeah, the original.
The original one.
Right, and I saw some inklings of that around our village too, that I didn't know enough about the history.
So they contacted me, probably a month and a half ago, we had a Zoom. And they were talking about moving forward, and I heard some inklings before that actually Energy thought about trying to buy them out. And then they were looking back.
What's the one that, yeah, yeah, I think it included like part of the old deer farm there.
But it's been quiet again, so. We'll see. All right, you had a email document drop correspondence from the ADO and how we followed up. We got the initial conversation started back in November. The ADO coincidentally, like the day after New York State EDC held their IDA Academy in Rose County. And the director of the ADO was in Rose County, and we presented. I mean, not that it's probably connected at all. We get this fun email from the ADO saying that they saw some of our press releases and we're like, oh, it's just a misunderstanding. But we had Kevin draft a letter back to them. We thought maybe that would be the end of it, but as is anything with the ADO, that's not the end of it. They're still convinced that Natural Lewis was formed as a subsidiary of the IDA. But they, if you read that last correspondence from them, they really didn't give us any direction, said, you're not. So with Kevin retiring, he had done a little bit of work to draft a response again. But we call him Melissa, Dana from Barkley, or Melissa from Barkley, Dana. They'll come back. We worked with Melissa on a lot of our IDA policies that are required by the state. And she's kind of on our brain on that kind of thing. And she was somebody that Brittany reached out to prior to doing any of this. To get her okay, her go ahead. So we've engaged with Melissa and she's going to take it from here. Continuing to work down the road of satisfying the APO. So while it's not like ideal situation, I think worst case scenario. They say no, Naturally Lewis is formed by it, and if the holdup seems to be that we use staff names as founders of Naturally Lewis. So that's the connection I think they don't like the most. So I think worst case scenario, we could have to bring staff back over to the IDA and completely sever ties, have somebody else take over Naturally Lewis, just a name on that organization, before then terminating employees at IDA and over. That's what I can see being the worst case scenario. I don't think it's a big deal. I just think it's gonna take some time, legal fees to satisfy them. So in the meantime, we're just trying to make sure we don't rock the boat on anything else. Questions on that, any concerns from you guys?
Melissa still believe it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's modeled after how other entities. in the
Yeah, that's
state
what
have
I
organized.
thought, yeah.
So it's really technicalities, I think, and the ADO really hasn't given us a ton of scrutiny over the years. We haven't had any deal about it, haven't had authorities budget us on it, so.
And they're not, in the letter, they're not presenting anything that they're saying you should do,
No,
right? It's just a,
yeah, they're just saying that we shouldn't have done that.
yeah.
So they can tell us to stop using it, but IDA isn't actually using it, we're contracting with Naturally Lewis, so. I'm not too worried, I think it's annoying, but I'm not worried, but I don't think any of you guys will go to jail, so.
Wait,
that was your
What? I'm sure it places a little bit more of a microscopic lens on all activity when something comes out of radar, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that comes naturally when you become a leader, which you've done. It's gonna come with that.
I'm just gonna, I'll just do whatever Joe said, so.
On an unrelated note, if we're okay with that one, Tom Dillon, extra good.
Yeah.
Really gone.
Or in all seriousness though, is everybody okay with this and okay with the direction we're taking and addressing? Do.
This helps the lawyers. Or an extra vacation next year, thanks to us and idiots at the state. That was on purpose.
Yes. Okay.
Nice. So thanks for that update and. So yeah, so Tom, reached out, shared, I think, with everyone, so he is very much appreciated his time on the board and, we appreciate his contributions and he, just cited that his age and, some personal plans and travel and stuff, that it would make it hard for him to stay involved in the meetings, so he felt it was time to pass the torch, so we certainly appreciate his time and the ideas he brought forward, and just a reminder, you know, we as the IDA, our board members are appointed by the county board of legislators. And so, you know, we're always looking for interested people that are you know, want to be engaged and have the time that they can stay up on stuff. We have tried to make sure we're diversified across the county geographically, and you know, was kind of our lone member from the southern part of the county, so it would be nice to be able to continue to have that part of the county represented with whoever fills that, but we'll be talking to the county, and if you know, if you have any ideas of people you interact with that might have an interest, especially in that part of the county. You know, it's like everything else, we want an active, engaged member, right? So we're not gonna just fill it with someone because they check a box if they're not gonna ever come to a meeting, but that would be, you know, our goal to try to continue to bring that kind of, you know, make sure we're represented by all areas of it.
Does the county advertise?
No. We haven't, in the past, they have put something in the newspaper or on their website about, when there is an opening, accepting applications, but it kind of depends, there's also been times where there's kind of been a known pool of candidates that expressed interest previously, so they've reached back out to them before they've advertised it.
Do we have that now?
We're just starting to go back on that. Fortunately, it's been a few years. We've had a nice solid group here, so that's a good thing, but we gotta dust that up and reevaluate where we're at. Ultimately, it'll be a conversation with the board of legislators and Ryan and stuff to move some possible things forward. So. And we also still have there's also 2 open seats as well on the actual Lewis board, and in that case it's more Herb's area, northern part of the county that we're lacking representation from, but there's those possibilities as well. So we have a couple of possibilities for someone that wants to get more involved and stuff. So if you and many of your circles, if you
I just want to apologize, I had an 8 o'clock, so I scooted right down. I did text Candace Randall, she didn't know about today, so I told her it's always the first Thursday of each month. So she apologized for that, so she'll know about that now in the future. And what part, I work in Boonville, so what part of the southern part of the county was he from, LCIDA?
Well, he was more involved, but honestly, I mean, it's kind of arbitrary. But because of the nature of our county, we've actually kind of used school district
Okay,
as a blanket. And because, with our pilots and stuff, obviously, we're dealing with municipalities and school districts, so because we're a 7-person board and there's 20 some or 8, whatever, it's just shy of 20 townships or whatever in the county. We've kind of used school districts to kind of
it's
generally,
like South Louis area.
yeah, so it's essentially, he was South Louis, but he was in the Lions Falls term. So that, and again, it's not a hard, there's no required criteria. And ultimately, it's up to the board of legislators, it's just, we've just tried to make an active effort to have, geographic diversity and even in the careers that people have, we're not. Obviously, they're not bringing their job to, we're not expecting them to do their job on our behalf, but just that they, a diverse set of skills and backgrounds brings helpful knowledge to our discussions, right? Or, and so we've had, so we kind of, if it's our best case scenario, we kind of say, we have an engineer, we have a finance person, and like we have a small business, so like, what are other kind of skill sets that bring value to the conversation? So that's our like, high in the sky, like goal at any given time. But so I guess we have a resignation letter from Tom that ultimately, is notifying both us and the county board of legislators that he's resigning. So at this point, we have a 6-person board until that position is reappointed. But anything else?
I don't know. And you guys at the legislator level, you got your committee assignments last night, right?
We did, but did you know about this? From the county center? Yeah, I
I
didn't.
mean, I don't think I brought it to Ryan's attention that we're ultimately looking for somebody, but yeah, we're expected to be an action item.
I'll need to put that in their Lewis County, they're not sure Lewis newsletter. That there's an opening.
Yeah, good.
Social media.
Yeah, how many years ago was it when we were trying to fill the position that Tom took? That we actually accepted applications on our website.
Were you involved in that during?
I did.
Did I throw in an application?
I didn't follow that one.
I'd like to see it in social
It was like
media.
one blip where we.
I think I see it in social media.
Who filled
And
yours?
it's regularly,
From Jerry's stuff.
yeah.
Sure.
Oh, did you?
No, her.
Or was, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. Maybe the one
Everything had the most scrutiny, I think that was one that the county really wanted to like,
I went in front of the
they wanted to be like really,
meeting.
really formal about it, and we had it wrong. It was,
And there were like 4 or 5 people,
it was myself and Jared from IDA.
but I mean, candidates.
Oh, yeah, and then
Same
there
or
was,
not,
Yeah.
so you have a whole bunch of people.
and then there was, several county people. Hopefully we found a happy medium. To be quite honest, it went from like years and years ago to being kind of just like the 2 or 3, or let's see, at least 3 directors ago. It was like this thing where it was like, oh, my buddy's interested, like, and it was just kind of, and then and then when Eric was director and working with the county, they, there was an interest in making it a little more formal, being a little more thoughtful about who we had on the board. And then there was, the county kind of like took it to the other extreme, and we did like this application process and interviews and stuff, and now I think we've balanced out in kind of a happy medium where we're trying to get the word out. You know, that so people are aware of it and have an opportunity, but also think about what, you know, the needs of our board are and stuff, and so hopefully we're in a good spot with that, but yeah, it kind of swung from one extreme to the other, and now maybe we're back in the middle.
Yeah, and your spot's always kind of the weird one, because county has a legislator on our board, so that one's always the oddball, like, it's just.
Yeah, no, you're two of us, so it's, yeah.
And that's not a first either, we've had that, and we had basically the exact same scenario. Several years ago where we had our county appointed legislator on board, and then someone that was the existing board member decided to run for legislator. And was elected, so it was almost the exact same.
Right, so you already have
scenario.
some resolved now.
Yeah.
Right, and that conversation came up, is it at the Natural Rules Board? I can't remember, the conversation came up that is this an issue, so I looked into the ABO guidance, and as long as the majority of the board is considered independent, which it is anyway, but then also, it's not like her appointed because he's a legislator from the board. So he is independent, we always have to know all of those potential conflicts and everything, but we do have an independent board, so we're fine.
Yeah, so just, you know, it's a unique organization in that, we've been fortunate, we've had a really good group, we've had turnover, but it's all been for like really, you know, well, it was never because of someone was disgruntled or there were any issues, it was just, you know, people move on in their lives and things change, and we've had some turnover, but it's also an organization that it takes a while to really get up to speed on what's going on, so you hope to have some longevity out of your board members so that they can get past the introduction phase and, you know, contribute, so. And then we've never, because we're appointed by the county, we've never had like term limits or anything, we've talked about that. But it's, you know, it's, once you're appointed, it's, you know, been either a personal decision, or, I mean, technically the county could remove any of us if they wanted to, that has happened in other areas, fortunately, it's never been an issue here, but I like to think of it that, you know, if you're, you know, if we were to think about people's time, it's you know, it's good to get fresh perspectives, it's also good to have a balance of experience because it's so complicated, and so you know, if someone is willing to commit to, you know, or barring any unexpected life changes, is willing to commit maybe 5 years as an unofficial, you know, term, I think it's helpful for the continuity, so. We beat that one.
Yeah.
But it is good, it's always a good opportunity, so.
Alright, old business, we sent out the UTAP, this was September, we sent out our UTAP as we're required to, for proposing new changes to it, to the taxing jurisdictions. And then we followed up with informational sessions, one in Croton, one in Louder, one in Lions Falls, just to make ourselves available for conversations about the UTAP, and because it's a foreign language to most people, sometimes to me too. To answer questions and just be there. So this document just kind of summarizes the feedback we received none by mail, none by email. Brittany had a couple conversations on the phone, with different representatives, just looking for clarification, it's always easier to talk about it than actually just read through the document. And then we had a really good discussion at the Krogan informational session. We had Tom Calamus and John Jones, who were town board members at the time, and since they told me while we were there that Tom, since he got elected as a legislator, is not on the town board anymore, and John was getting done. But great conversation, I mean, we briefly skimmed the UTEP and they were fine with those changes, but they just kind of wanted to understand what IDA does and what our incentives are all about and things like that. So it was actually just a really good hour and a half long conversation with them. Just been kind of just an added bonus of making ourselves available like that, and I look forward to continuing to do that with municipalities because it can be kind of like a contentious relationship because they feel like our incentives taking money away from them because we reduce taxes on things. But getting them to understand what we do and hopefully buying is always a good thing. Lions Falls, we met outdoors,
Scroll down.
Jane Gillette and I met outside the village office because something happened, it was not open, so luckily she was the only one was there. And we met outside, her, again, not a lot of comment around the UTEP, mostly around the RPTL 525B, 75B, the legislation that changes the assessments on renewables and how that's all calculated. And I left that conversation with her, she would like follow up on exactly how those changes affect the pilots we have or compared to the pilots we have, because it's no effect so far unless they choose to opt out of the pilot.
I actually have an update about that. I opened up my county email to pull up this stuff.
Yeah,
And I have an email from an attorney that has agreed to represent individuals in Lewis County in that lawsuit against New York.
yeah,
It's only going to work if we have another county that's going to kick in.
okay,
Lewis County's agreed to kick in 20,000, but they're saying between the appeals deposition and court case, it could be 60. So if this attorney is able to find 2 other entities to kick in, we have 1 on board, there's 1 more we still need. Then they are going to bring some type of action against New York State to hopefully address that. I don't know if they'll be successful, they were in the last one. But we'll see.
and the interesting thing about that is when I had Candy Aiken from Real Property run the numbers and she owes me another iteration because I found a couple errors in the spreadsheet. It's all over the place. The calculator for the assessments, and that's kind of been the argument, is the assessment calculator doesn't take enough factors into consideration. So whereas our Flat Rock Wind pilot, we're not concerned about them going off pilot because it's close enough to the assessment. Some of them would benefit by going off, some of them, it would hurt them to go off pilot, and it's just all over the place, so. Like the one that Denmark was most concerned about. The last iteration I saw would actually benefit if they went off.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
We'd be better off.
Once I get the iteration back from Candy, I'll be distributing it because
Is that true?
Yeah, God, was that the way, so worried about it,
It would benefit.
the companies.
Right, that's what I was
Right, yeah, not
confused.
cost
I got
detrimental.
was the opposite, so.
That's what I thought you were saying.
So I asked Candy to check the calculations,
Because
cause
every calculation I've seen, it's significant loss.
so it's interesting, to say the least. So I'll make sure you get a copy of that when I get it back. I need to poke around that, we've been a little bit consumed with getting tax rates.
Is it Savannah County? That's the other.
So, general, or something,
So there.
it's, yeah, that's
So
also
here.
yeah.
Let's go ahead.
down here all the.
Oh, it's a county?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard of
I know that.
But it is, that is very interesting because what they were charging for per megawatt downstate was astronomical, but and their property prices are higher, but 20,000 per megawatt is huge, so I'm not surprised that energy companies would push back.
Yeah.
So it's again a pendulum swing, like some places were charging way too much, and then it's swinging back to this assessment calculator that should have been in place to begin with, but everything was shoved through IDAs because it wasn't a mechanism, so we'll settle somewhere. And we can just,
What's been, I mean, what I find the most frustrating in like this area is outside, for upstate New York, we'll call it, like Lewis County's been relatively aggressive. And I mean, there's still counties that their pilots are minuscule, they're just ridiculously low. And, I challenge anyone to say that there hasn't been a project, wind or solar, that has not gone forward in this county because of our pilot policy. So I just don't, we're not, like, I really, if we're talking about incentivizing renewable energy and meeting the state's goals, I don't see any way we're standing in the way with that, even with having a relatively aggressive policy. And if money is taken away from us because of this, all it's doing is discouraging, adding more fuel to the fire in rural areas of saying, this is all energy going downstate and we gotta put up with it. Where at least now we feel like we have some control and are getting some, financial benefit from hosting things. So,
How long is this stay in place for?
No.
It's not in place now.
So
But like, why aren't we seeing action on the part of the energy companies?
they really should have,
Yeah.
because it went into effect in April.
Mhm.
So they have the right to bring actions to force, some of the counties did kowtow to it and started following the RP. We chose not to,
Mhm.
so we're basically taking a position of, you have a problem with it, sue us.
Right,
It's
Well-
probably going to start happening now.
the other thing is,
some of the townships.
Yeah, they have some of them, right, and some of the counties throughout New York State have agreed to go along with New York State's new budget, but. From a county position, they basically said, sue us.
but the pilots could, any pilot we have, they can terminate at any time and go back on taxable.
Right.
Not just the energy ones,
Mhm.
if any business we have a pilot with feels that
They would be
they'd be
better off.
better off going on the taxable, they can terminate their pilot. So,
Right. I know we've had like a few meetings with the company, just try to like. Relationship building and conversation.
Right, and I think the sense I get right now is that at least with a pilot. And actually having to March 1st, that status date, and I think that you're never gonna meet that at this point. To get off pilot. The sense I get right now is that because this has been so it's like a roller coaster with New York State, that they need their financing to be known. So right now, they're just, their pilot is unknown, they're sticking with that for now until the vote sheet, so.
Yeah, because they would have to break the pilot and sue the municipality. Because some municipalities have said we're sticking to these values regardless of what New York State says. So if that's the case, they would have to turn around and sue the municipality as well to force the change, but you're right, because the taxable rate date is
and
a
that's,
couple years probably.
and I remember one of the companies many years ago arguing with us that they felt at that time, even before this new process, that they thought they could get a better deal not doing a pilot. But from their investors' standpoint, it was all about budgeting and stability. So they were doing the pilot because it provided stability to their cost projections. But even then, they argued that they thought they could sue the municipalities and.
Right.
And actually have a lower rate than what our pilot was back then.
And this law firm that may be potentially representing individuals from Lewis County is from Poughkeepsie. So it's statewide, this is the region.
So anyway, that was most of the conversation at the James Gillette was concerned with, representing the town attorney. At the level informational section, I had Bob Muller from the town of Level, Scott Luther from Copenhagen School, and Sherry Harmich from the town of Pickney. And that conversation was kind of all over the board. Scott Luther, it seemed like, had scrutinized these at the most, which I appreciated. And his concerns were mostly on what does adaptive reuse mean? Could you take a building and tear it down and build in the same footprint, and is that adaptive reuse? Or is it really renovating the whole building into something? Or if you've got a Lawrence Falls mill site and somebody builds on that, is that adaptive reuse? Because it served another purpose, and why would that not be a new build? So I agree that we need to add a definition of adaptive reuse to the policy. So that's kind of the reason that I feel we need to send the policy back out with that definition added. I think it's a substantial enough piece that we should add it. And as I researched a little bit, can we scroll down to the second page? This is what I'm proposing we add as a definition of adaptive reuse. Updating or adapting not use of an existing building or previously developed site for the purpose other than its original use. So the research I did, a lot of adaptive reuse, when communities use that, they're looking to preserve historic buildings. So they want people to reuse a building, renovate it, for whatever use they want. But they are trying to preserve the historic buildings. I don't think that's necessarily what we're aiming to do in Lewis County, as much as we're trying to keep density of development. So as opposed to developing more out on the number 4 road, we want to use buildings and lots that have previously been used for commercial or industrial, instead of just sprawling because it's cheaper to build new than to reuse. So that's why I added the term previously developed site. Because honestly, if we were to buy our building that Naturally Lewis is in right now, it'd be just as cost effective to tear it down and start new from the footprint as it would be to renovate it. And honestly, I don't think we care either way. There's an aspect of preserving historic, but like we would rather somebody did something with that than move down the street and do something.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, personally, I love history and love some of the old buildings and stuff, but sometimes they just do not make sense. And it's up, a town or a village could have codes related to the aesthetics of the new structure. So you're not just building a steel box, it has to meet some sort of like zoning that fits the nature of that section of the town or whatever, right? So I would be in favor of using that terminology related to previously developed sites.
It also gives us the ability to use the adaptive reuse schedule for a site like Lawrence Falls mill site. Where if it is an open site, you could consider that something built on that, a new build. Without this definition, But the adaptive reuse schedule is a little bit more aggressive in terms of abatement, so that would allow a little more incentive to build there versus a site that's never been built on before.
Do you have a definition for developed?
I'm still a little confused reading that, if I'm like totally independent, having been looking at this before. I can't quite decipher whether or not that means I could tear it down and rebuild. What's it?
So I agree.
I read that as you can tear it down because of a previously developed site. You might need a definition of
But it
development.
says updating and renovating.
It says or renovating.
Right, updating or renovating. Updating. Doesn't say new construction, I guess, and I don't know that
To
it.
me, I'm not fine, so I'm putting parentheses around
Right.
updating or renovating an existing building.
Previously.
Or just
Or-
take out existing,
Well, then we'll be renovating.
a building. Or
You should
previous,
renovate the site,
you could renovate a building or the site.
but that means you could do reconstruction.
Right.
Do we want it to be okay to do new construction?
That's what
I would be in favor of it being open.
rather than seeing building vacant,
Right.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, I think, I think it becomes a town issue if they have planning and zoning in place around what the aesthetic structure looks like.
So is it updating or renovating an existing building or
I think you need a
Build it,
comma, it's
or
updating or.
building on the previously
Yeah,
developed
you need
site?
updating or renovating an existing building, comma, or new construction on a previously developed site. It's developed and previously there.
Or construction on. previously developed site.
Yeah, what does develop mean?
Does that just mean a septic?
Yeah.
Like as a lawyer, I would tear it up, yeah. And how recently did it need to be developed? So is that something you just tore down 5 years ago, or something that was torn down 100 years ago? Or
I mean,
previously?
I guess it depends on, from a natural resources perspective. To me. It's. Something that. Has. Some sort of. Historic infrastructure there that isn't like virgin forest ground or a crop field or something.
But then you have to define what sort of historic structure. Right, like, does it matter? She said if it's a septic or if it's a well, and I don't
Or is
know.
it a building that was torn down?
Yeah.
How?
No, I know these are very good
Yeah.
questions. To me, it's anything that doesn't allow it to be. Forest or cropland. Right, any sort of foundation. Past, sewer water infrastructure. Anything that doesn't allow it to be cultivated land or forest land. Cause the idea is these sites have already been converted at some point, right? They've already been converted away from their natural cities or whatever you wanna call it. And so utilizing that versus clearing trees or digging into a crop field.
So you're talking about building,
And yeah,
building a home that's already been, because a building lot could just be about, well, it's already been subdivided and.
right.
It's actually been utilized yet.
Right, which again becomes that's, so that becomes whether. That like something like our business park would fit into this UTEP or we use other mechanisms to develop, right? Like this is our UTEP, so that doesn't exclude us from still working on our business park. Right, it just means it doesn't fall into this category. This is more about someone incentivizing. Someone has a business or needs a new location or is growing their business and trying to get them to. reuse an existing lot versus going, like Cheyenne said, going out on number 4 road
Right.
and putting in brand new infrastructure. But to me, that's where I come from, I mean.
Yeah, I
whatever
agree
you
with
guys
that,
think,
I'm just
but-
trying to think how to make it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. But,
Well, and the point would be to take anything vague out of it, or it can't be questioned easily, well, what about this? As many of those as we can eliminate by verbiage. That would be.
Yeah. There's a balancing act there to be. To be flexible, because we don't know what business is gonna come
Yeah.
forward with what idea. Right, so there's a balancing act between providing some structure and guardrails. And still having. Still having some ability to. Accommodate ideas that we haven't thought of, right?
and then you have its original use, is that the land's original use or the building's original use or?
You said that, right?
I know.
No, it is.
Like, I'm like, how do I make this work for what I want?
It's totally new, though.
But
No,
it would be, it's like whatever the structure, because land's original use would be, in this case, as Joe said, it's like forest or agriculture. So whatever structure.
Zoning?
I don't even know what that means.
No, I think, no, that's a very good point, I don't know what language to use, but that's like. The difference between the old jail becoming a coffee shop and the Lions Falls mill site. Still being essentially an industrial site, but not producing paper anymore, right?
Right,
Those are
it
two
could
different-
stop, so if you're saying it's the building's original use, which is what I think it would be. But then if you have, so we have a coffee shop right now, this would prohibit this from being another type of restaurant or something
Well,
like
that's
that.
previous use, would be better?
Could be, yeah.
It's previous in, whatever, previously intended, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Other than which it was
Suggesting
previously
original
built or
replaced
designed
with
for.
Let's get ChatGPT on that.
That's what these two are from. Yeah, that's what they're, right?
I'm still working. You'd think after having 3 children, you'd be able to think and hear words at the same time.
It makes it worse.
The last one kind of does work, eco-friendly process, so you're not cutting down trees to create a new lot. Of updating or renovating existing buildings or, we just have to put, do the construction on it.
Tearing down buildings, is that?
I'm trying to get like, I need to define people friendly, does that mean tearing down trees,
What?
does it mean tearing down a building, like?
would the word established be better than existing?
I want to define established, so.
We gotta want to find out.
Well,
There's still gonna be so many ors in here.
Now, you know why,
It doesn't
the
have,
lawyer stuff is like.
we don't have
Yeah, okay, comma.
we don't have an English teacher on our board of directors, just a lawyer.
Run on
So, yeah,
Fine.
exactly.
This is a big, we got GPT that goes into more detail. I don't know if anyone cares.
Gravel. Yes, this is complete.
Actually, the last piece, it's wordy, but it's.
Get rid of creatively. On the last one, and I think that actually is pretty good.
This one? Yeah. Yours is the second one, right?
Hey guys, is this our last thing on the agenda? I have to leave at 9:30 at the Syracuse, so I just wanna make, just asking.
It is.
Okay, now.
Yeah, and it's gonna be this one because technically we should have the board's approval.
It's working,
But it's for it's very much.
when are you sending it out?
I'd like to print it out and get it. Get it wrapped up before our next meeting so that we can approve it.
Okay. I honestly think it's going to require more time for all of us to come. That's just what, I don't think we can do it in 5 minutes. Or 10, but
but knowing that you've got potential for the application coming in from
yeah.
Glenfield. Interesting, why you want to get it.
How could we change that? The ones like, we could change it, right, the definition? If we needed to, or once established, it is established.
Yeah, because of the process of having to send it out to municipalities for their review.
You wouldn't have to do another review process if we change this and you send it out.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of a review process, but there's no, is there feedback?
Yeah, I mean, we. So like, the board meetings.
Like, I think to have a couple of versions to punch holes in, especially from an attorney standpoint, would be nice. Get better time and input into it, because I don't feel I'm qualified enough to punch enough holes into it,
Okay.
then someone else can.
Can we? Would anyone be comfortable with a motion to move forward with fine tuning, have Cheyenne and Jessica move forward with fine tuning what's here?
No, I'm fine with that too. She's the best qualified to do it, yeah.
Could we do that as a motion?
Yeah,
It's,
if the motion is, have the definition of that.
Right.
Yes, and whatever.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
And Craig, a motion.
No, you have to wait a whole.
No, and it's the best use of our time and resources.
Yeah.
And add a definition of adaptive reuse based on the based on the proposed language here with modifications from Cheyenne and Jessica.
Sure, explain what I mean here.
Oh, I'm asking.
Hey, I'd like to talk about,
Can we actually make a motion on that?
yeah, I'll make a motion
All
there.
right, Goggin, second by her, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, okay.
I want to push that, remember we were talking about making videos on the website? I know when Brittany's gone, I was like, can you take that on when she comes back on?
Explaining our. some
Yeah,
of our
just,
stuff, yeah.
again, video, like soundbites, they're not soundbites, they're not soundbites, they're video, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Little shorts, they're called, yeah, my kids watch them like TikTok, 30 seconds, whatever. Just on our websites to get a better idea, and it would help the municipalities as well, because it's a person talking rather than reading and interpreting it a different way.
Right.
It's less. I think you get to interpret still the video in a different way, but less likely. You know, and answering questions, like a Q&A sort of thing.
Yeah.
So like a, yeah,
I agree, and like, I think, having that, the town hall approach that you did with the feedback on the Utah. The conversation led to other, you know, they were fine with Utah, but they wanted to know more about something with the IDA. I think that's a great idea.
yeah,
Because you can also take those and put them out on your social media.
right, and that's,
Or I think it's-
that's what I'm hoping, and in time, it'll save time. In you having to present it again and again, the same.
The only thing you have to do is make sure that you've got some sort of maintenance.
Yeah, still that, oh,
If
absolutely.
something changes.
Oh, absolutely,
You're gonna need to update it.
Yeah.
You don't want wrong information.
Yeah, so it's like if you could review it every 3 months, every 6 months or whatever, or as needed. But yeah, when she comes back, I'd like to pursue that still.
Yep.
When is she slated to come back?
She wants to start phasing in the end of February.
Oh, it's pretty quick. She don't want, yeah, baby's good, awesome.
I have a follow-up question before we adjourn too. On the CRM, where do we land with that? Are we still
We're utilizing,
using it? Okay, we are utilizing.
yeah,
Okay.
utilizing is used lightly, but we are using some tools and we're currently working with Roxanne Turk on streamlining some of our services and working together better as a team, and CRM is part of that. And as staff, we're working on automating some of our processes through the CRM.
What's
content research.
Or content and customer relations.
Oh, management, we live by that.
Yeah, yes,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So we have a couple different tools that we have the CRM, which, so if somebody signs up and as part of our DBA program, is what it used to be called, now it's just like what we do.
Yeah,
If a business is looking for services, that automatically goes into the CRM where we can track
yeah.
how we're.
All your correspondence is.
Everything's on, yeah, like, yeah, we live by that.
What's the name of it?
It's Dynamics 365.
Yeah.
And then, we had a sub company that helped us implement this, Skitch, this name of that.
So is that like a monthly subscription, a yearly subscription? Monthly.
Yeah, and we pay per user for that, so it's costly. And we're just figuring out other tools that we can start to use with some of our programs. There's like tracking mechanisms for compliance and things like that I think will be useful as we continue to dig into it.
Sure.
And some of it is just setting aside time to be able to implement those
And
things.
it links with Outlook and emails and everything,
Yeah.
everything gets
Yeah.
tracked, oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good for legal purposes and for analytical organization and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's useful, it's time consuming to start.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good questions, anything else before we adjourn? Take a motion to adjourn. Guy in a second.